All right, today we are taking a look at this game, Teutons, the assaults on the West 1870 to 1940. And I have the 1870 set up here. And so let's take a look at our units. We have corps-sized units and army-sized units for the Prussians. In this case, the Prussians have, let's take a look here. There we go. The Prussians have these army-sized units, and you'll notice that there's a yellow box around their movement, and that's because of a special rule that comes into play as an option. So the Prussian player can, from the start of the game, opt to roll a die, and if they roll a 1, they can move these units 2 factors. If they never roll a 1, they will always move as a 2-factor movement, or always move as a 1-factor movement, or they can opt to wait until the 4th turn when the Burnside and Sheridan rule for this scenario pops into play, and they'll automatically move it. So I'm just going to take the default rule, which is wait till the 4th turn. We have a border here, and this is the German border in the 1870 rule. It kind of runs along there. The French have a couple of other things going on here. So the French are exclusively corps-sized units in this game. And the French units have a yellow box around their attack factor because they have chassepot rifles, which allow them to shift the combat odds in their favor 1 column. There are a number of things going on the map here. We also have fortresses. These are the red fortresses that also offer 1 strength point. We have a cavalry unit here, an Imperial Guard unit back over here in Paris, and the goal is to move the Prussians all the way into Paris, and for the French, it is to stop them from doing that. They cannot, nobody can go into Luxembourg, the Netherlands, or Belgium as a part of this scenario, and the French get a special consideration in their victory if they're able to end up with a unit still in Germany. So I guess this is to ensure that the Prussians don't just go on an all-out dead sprint with a rogue French corps hanging out behind the lines and sneaking into Germany. I don't know how that would necessarily happen, but it certainly could. So if we continue to take a look at the game, we have some just basic layout here, and we have our handy sequence of play. And in the sequence of play for the 1870 scenario, the first thing you do is replacements and reinforcements. On the first game turn, there are none, so we skip that. But in the future, if you have corps-sized units, they can be designated at this time for both the French and the Prussians. They go on the turn track in the next turn and come in disrupted. For army-sized units, it's a little different. It's their combat factor +1, and that's the number of turns it takes for them to come back. So in the case of these Prussian units, that's 3 + 1, 4 turns later they come in. In this scenario, only the numbered corps can come back in that were available at the start of the game, and the armies that were available at the start of the game. So basically anything that's a reinforcement, if it's lost, it's lost. So the Prussians start out with an entrenchment phase, and we're not going to do any entrenchment here. The next phase is operational movement and attack allocation, and in this case I'm going to be using these kind of hidden markers to accommodate that, to line up those attacks. So let's take a look here and see. Now, because the French are all corps-sized units, the Prussians don't have to worry about making any sort of major change to their attack strategy because they don't have to attack everybody. But if the French were going to attack here and do a counterattack, they would have to designate attacks for every adjacent army unit. So let's take a look here, and I think we're going to do an attack here and maybe one here. Now there's some trickiness to this, and that has to come into play with our terrain modifiers. So when we look at, let's resolve the first attack, which will be the units here and here, attacking this French unit. We can pull that off. So we have a total of 5, 6, 9 attack factors of attacking 1, but they do get a column shift. So the highest it can be is a 7 to 1 on the combat results table. That makes it a 6 to 1 on the combat results table. Still not very favorable, but attacking across that border also adds 1 combat factor for the defending units there. So it's 9 to 2, which rounds to 5 to 1. We change that up, and that is a 4 to 1. And so on the 4 to 1, we roll a die, and we roll a 1 on the 4 to 1, which is DE. That means defender eliminated. So this one is out quickly, and the Prussians have an opportunity to go ahead and move a unit in advance after combat. So they're going to go ahead and take advantage of that. Our next attack is here, and we have a 1-2 factor because of the border against a 4. That's a 2 to 1. That with a column shift becomes a 1 to 1. Or actually, I take that back. That becomes a 3 to 2. And the 1 that I rolled on the 3 to 2 is a D2, which means it disrupts and it moves away 2 hexes. Now the attacker gets to choose how far they go, and the defender gets to choose the route. In this case, they can go back. They have to continually move further away, and they can't move through a zone of control. So there's an army already there, so we know they're going to be going 1 and 2. And then they are flipped because they are disrupted. When a unit is disrupted, they are unable to move, they can't attack, and if they're attacked while they are disrupted, there's a column shift against them. Furthermore, when we see that there is a disrupted unit, they do not recover until the French player turn. Both Prussian and French players, French sides, recover during the French player turn. And again, we're going to go ahead and take our advance here. And I think we've got a good start as the French, or we have a bad start as the French, we have a good start for our Prussians. So the next thing that we want to do is take a close look at some of these rivers. So actually, we should back this back up because I see now that there's a river sitting here, which I should have seen initially. So because there's a river here, that's also a column shift, I believe, for a river. Yes, so that's a column shift. So it would be the 1 to 1 instead of the 3 to 2, and a 1 is still a D2, so we really don't have any difference on the end result, but it is important to note that river is there. The next thing that we're going to do for the Prussian player is look at the French victory determination. The French are not in a position of victory at this point, and the supply status determination for Prussian units. Now, the Prussian units have to trace their supply back to this edge of the map, and so they're able to do that right now. Real quick, let's run through a sample French turn here. And the French on their first turn have operational movement and attack allocations. So they're going to go ahead and we're going to bump this guy into here. We're going to make a move here that's 1, 2, 3. And we're going to bump him out to go 1, 2. Okay, so we've made that move. And now at this point, we're going to make an attack, probably an ill-decided attack, but he's in the clear. This is a forest that's clear, so there's no terrain here, although there is this river, so maybe we're not going to do that. Maybe the French are just going to hold tight. And as a result, any Prussian units would go ahead and they would recover from disruption before any French attacks, unless the French are already in a position to attack. And then, of course, you have the French who would then do their supply state determination. They just have to trace back to the south edge or to the water, and they will achieve their supply. And supply is blocked by things like enemy zone of control, enemies that are flat out in the way, so if you get encircled, they can get blocked by folks who are in fortresses, things like that. And so in this case, it's pretty straightforward. And then, of course, we'll just do our recovery from disruption for all French units, and we move on to the next turn. In turn 2, we receive 2 reinforcements, and we can designate the unit that was lost during the first turn, which is a core unit, to come back in turn 3. The 2 received units are able to go on in any legal placement, so we're going to go ahead and place one here, and we're going to place another one, I don't know, maybe here. And so that would begin the next round of player turns. I hope you've enjoyed this quick look at Teutons Assault on the West, 1870 to 1940 from Hollandspiele.